Palworld is the Pokemon game I wanted Nintendo to make. Everybody is talking about Palworld right now, so I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna throw my 5 cents into the pot because watching Palworld right now has been fascinating. This game came out years ago in early access. It exploded back then, disappeared from the conversation a little bit. It eventually hit 1.0 and then it blew the fuck up again. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people coming back to this game on Steam alone. And I think we're past the point where we can call Palworld some random Pokemon clone that got lucky. Oh no, Palworld is fucking enormous. And that's what makes this entire situation with Nintendo so interesting to me. Because I don't think Palworld is threatening because it looks similar to Pokemon. I think Palworld is threatening because it represents something much bigger. It represents competition. You can't ignore Palworld anymore. There have been monster catching games besides Pokemon since forever. I mean, Digimon exists. There are plenty of games that have taken inspiration from Pokemon, but none of those games created this kind of conversation because, you could ignore them. They're smaller, they're more niche, they have their own audience, and Pokemon has theirs. Everybody goes home happy. But Palworld? Oh, Palworld is different. You can't remove this thing from the conversation because it's right there, in your face. Millions of people bought this thing. Hundreds of thousands of people are playing it concurrently again. And most importantly, people love this fucking thing. And that is a big problem because now you've got something that has enough similarities with Pokemon that everybody immediately understands the comparison. But mechanically, it's doing something completely different. It's a survival game. There's crafting, there's base building, there's exploration, there's guns, there's automation. There are pals working inside your base. It's not literally trying to recreate the structure of a Pokemon game. And yet, it scratches an itch that I think Pokemon has left untouched for a very long time. And I know, because I'm one of those people. I used to love Pokemon. My relationship with Pokemon goes way back. And actually, I discovered Pokemon completely by accident. Nobody bought me Pokemon. Nobody came to me and went, hey, here's Pokemon, you should play this. Nah, I just found it. You see, my dad had gotten this old laptop from somebody he worked with. Eventually, my dad got another laptop, so this old one basically became mine. And this was back in the Windows XP era. So I'm just playing whatever is already installed on it. Solitaire, Minesweeper, all that. But I'm a kid, so eventually I start poking around. I'm going through folders, opening random shit, looking through documents. I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just exploring. And eventually, I find this file. Pokemon. I don't remember whether it was red or blue anymore. It was one of those early games. But here's the problem. I couldn't open it. I'm clicking this thing, nothing. Double clicking it, nothing. I'm trying everything, man. And I remember spending days trying to figure out what the fuck in this Pokemon file is. Then eventually, I find something else on the laptop. Virtual Boy. I open that. And somehow, through my little kid brain just clicking shit and figuring things out, I realized I can open that Pokemon file through this program. I put it in, the game boots, and that's how I discovered Pokemon. Pure fucking luck. I wasn't supposed to find that game. Nobody showed it to me. I found it because I was poking around where I probably wasn't supposed to be poking around. I love that story because that's kind of who I am. I like poking at things. I like figuring shit out. I like asking, okay, but why? And unfortunately, that's what happened with Pokemon. When is Pokemon going to evolve? After the first game, I played everything I could get my hands on. Silver, Crystal, Emerald, Diamond, Black and White. I love these games. And because I loved them so much, I remember constantly thinking about what Pokemon would eventually become. I used to go online and look at those fan-made 3D images. You know the ones, what Pokemon could look like in the future. And as a kid, I'm looking at this shit going, yo, imagine Pokemon like this. Imagine walking around this huge 3D world and actually seeing Pokemon everywhere. Imagine a proper next generation Pokemon game. Because in my head, obviously Nintendo was eventually going to do that. Why wouldn't they? Pokemon was massive. Technology was getting better. Games were getting bigger. Eventually, we're going to get this massive modern Pokemon experience. I couldn't fucking wait. And then I waited and waited and waited. Eventually, I got around to X and Y and I just stopped caring. Not because I suddenly hated Pokemon. I was tired of the formula. I had played variations of this experience for years and I wanted Pokemon to evolve. I wanted something that captured the fantasy I had when I was younger. Give me the creatures, give me the exploration, give me a massive world, but do something different with it. Modernize it, experiment, take some fucking risks. And eventually I just accepted it. Maybe Pokemon just isn't going to become that. And I moved on. Then Palworld showed up. And this is why I think Palworld became so successful. Because Pocket Pair walked into a market that had been sitting there waiting for somebody. They looked at the monster catching games and went, what else can we do with this? And suddenly, I'm playing this huge survival game. I'm exploring, I'm catching creatures, I'm building bases. My creatures are helping me gather resources, they're fighting alongside me, I'm crafting shit, I'm discovering new pals, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is the kind of shit I wanted Pokemon to experiment with years ago. Not literally Palworld. I wasn't sitting there as a kid thinking Pokemon needs guns and sweatshops. No, obviously not. I'm talking about the ambition, the willingness to take this concept somewhere completely different. That's what I wanted. And that's why I think Pokemon comparison actually helps explains Palworld's success. It's not people wanted fake Pokemon. No, people wanted someone to take this monster catching concept and push it somewhere else. And Nintendo just left that door open. Nintendo could have done this. That's the funniest part. Nintendo could have been first, not necessarily with a survival game or something that's exactly like Palworld, but they had decades to experiment with this formula. They have Pokemon, one of the biggest fucking franchises on the fucking planet. They had the audience, they had the characters, they had the brand recognition, they had everything. And for years, people like me were basically standing outside going, can we get something bigger? Can we get something more ambitious? Or just something a little different? And eventually, somebody else walked through the door. That's capitalism, baby. If there's a market and you're not serving it, eventually someone else is going to try. And Palworld tried. And apparently, there were a lot of us waiting. Which makes the lawsuit even more interesting. You know, we got Nintendo and the Pokemon Company suing Pocket Pair over patents. I'm not gonna pretend I'm a patent lawyer because I'm not. I'm also not gonna sit here and tell you exactly how that case is going to end. But from a player perspective, the optics are completely hilarious because you've got this smaller developer who creates this enormously successful monster catching survival game, and now Nintendo is taking them to court. So naturally, everybody starts going, ooh, Nintendo doesn't like the competition. Now, legally, obviously it's more complicated than that. Nintendo's argument is that specific mechanics infringe its patents. Pocket Pair disputes it. That's what the courts are for. But culturally, that's not how people are going to remember this. They are going to remember Palworld showed up. Palworld became enormous and Nintendo got mad. And that creates a narrative Nintendo has absolutely no control over. And Palworld keeps winning the narrative. That's what fascinates me. Because every time Palworld succeeds now, it means something beyond, hey, this game sold well. You see the game, it's 1.0, and people come back. The Steam numbers shoot up again. People start to talk about Nintendo. Palworld sells another ridiculous number of copies. People start to talk about Pokemon. Nintendo has another development in the patent dispute. People talk about Palworld. See, they tie together now. And meanwhile, Palworld just keeps existing. That's the part that makes me laugh. Because there were people who genuinely talked about this game like it was going to disappear. Like everybody was going to forget about it. Like, oh, it's just the game of the month. Apparently fucking not, because it's years later and we're still talking about Palworld. And I think that's good for Pokemon. Years where I'm probably going to lose some people, because I think Palworld succeeding is good for Pokemon. I think that competition is good. If you love Pokemon, you should want other monster catching games to succeed. I mean, why wouldn't you? Competition creates pressure, and pressure creates experimentation. If you are the undisputed king forever, you don't have to change shit, because you know people are going to show up. You know they are going to buy Pokemon. But now suddenly there's this other game, and it's not selling 500,000 copies, it's selling millions. Suddenly, there's another monster catching franchise in the mainstream gaming conversations. People now have another option, and that's good. That's what the industry needs. I want to see more of this. I want to see indie developers and smaller studios looking at genres dominated by gigantic companies and going, we can do something different with this. Please go and do that. Give these companies competition. Make them uncomfortable. Make them experiment. Make them earn your money. That's why Palworld matters to me. The funny thing is, there's actually something slightly bittersweet about all of this for me. Because when I was a kid playing Pokemon on an emulator, I thought Nintendo was eventually going to make the game I was imagining. I genuinely did. I thought technology would advance, Nintendo would advance with it, and eventually Pokemon would turn into this massive modern experience that would blow my mind. Instead, years later, some completely different developer made the game that reignited that feeling for me. That's crazy. Pokemon had decades, and somebody else walked through the door. That's why I don't think Palworld is dangerous because it's Pokemon with guns. That's just a surface level way of looking at it. Palworld is dangerous because it proved something. Pokemon isn't the only game allowed to own this fantasy. Nintendo doesn't have a monopoly on people wanting to explore a world filled with creatures. They don't have a monopoly on capturing monsters. They don't have a monopoly on building relationships with those creatures and using them in gameplay. Other developers can take those ideas somewhere else, and players can decide, yes, I like this version too. That's the threat. Not that Palworld is going to kill Pokemon, because let's be serious, Pokemon isn't going anywhere. The threat is that Pokemon isn't alone anymore, and for somebody who spent years waiting for Nintendo to give them something different, I fucking love this.